Well, earlier this September, just as the kids were getting back to school, we were notified that Mark Carney had appointed a major projects office chair and, of course, an office. Nothing like more bureaucrats to tell us what we already know. What we got, though, was a couple of days after that, some suggestion as to 5 projects, none of which, of course, included oil pipelines. But some people were, baying in agreement that's a good thing, and that's fine, except that it didn't include what was really needed, an oil pipeline, the kind that the Liberals have suppressed for quite some time, and movement on any one of the 17 projects, LNG, for which we are giving our natural gas to the United States. They're processing it and then sending it to the rest of the world, including billions, if not trillions of dollars in contracts going forward. It's nice to have an office making these things and create a whole layer of bureaucracy to do what should have been done some time ago. Now, Mark Carney has been prime minister, since February, March. It's now September, halfway through September, heading to October. And we still have no major indication of any movement on the areas where we need desperately to move. We've had 6 months of dithering, and instead we talk about pie in the sky projects that aren't going to necessarily yield any economic benefit or growth in the short term, nor give the prospect of getting some of our energy resources back to market. Why is energy so important? Well, the U.S. is focusing on the auto sector. They're likely to put more tariffs, especially on on Canadian-made vehicles destined for the U.S. That's part of the new USMCA discussions. But we tend to ignore the 10 or 15% of our market, which is directly reliant on oil and gas. And that's critical because at a time in which the federal government is running massive deficits and likely to be shockingly high when they finally present one in November 4th, I'm told, we're going to get a pretty good idea of just what it means to kill capital projects and discourage people from investing in Canada. You see, here's the problem. You have a government that said no to investment, allowed every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every group that's out there to protest and to block pipelines, including TMX, which cost you and I $50 billion, not 32, not 34, $50 billion. The new chair, by the way, of the Major Projects Office knows about that. She was chair of TMX and, of course, knows full well the public exposure. But we've told the rest of the world this is not a very safe or valid place to put your money. We said to the world, if you put money towards projects, there's no guarantee it's going to be built because we're going to allow every organization out there, green organization and others, and miscreant, basically, to try to block it. And if they're not able to block it through protests or through lawfare, well, they'll do what they did to some of the pipelines we saw a few years ago, where they actually vandalized it. That was the pipeline to the West Coast. And unfortunately, that left, I think, a very sour taste in the mouths of risk takers around the world, saying Canada's just not a viable place to make this money. So what are we going to do? Borrow more money from the federal government, from future generations, in order to get projects built, because we've scuppered, we've basically destroyed the incentive for people to want to invest in Canada. The mere fact that Mark Carney and his government have not declared an oil pipeline and have really repeated, which the Liberals are very good at, existing commitments to projects suggests to me that they're really out of ideas. And, the clock is running dangerously short. We have to come up with something that impresses the world and gets some enthusiasm. To that point, when you have 90 CEOs of major companies in Canada, those are still staying in Canada to the extent that they can, saying the country is in a very desperate economic situation. We need to move very quickly, and there's no more time for dithering. You kind of have to know that that's an important message at a time in which the country is seeing its economic futures dwindle. Bottom line, you have a projects office, but like everything else, having a bureaucrat telling you what they'd like to do and actually doing things are two very different outcomes. And I think for many Canadians, the old expression from the 1980s, where's the beef? We need to see some concrete, tangible evidence of the government not only committing to projects and ensuring no miscreants can block them or create any kind of attempt to stop these things, but also government's prepared to ensure that the financing and the investment climate is correct, and that we will not prevaricate, we will not change our mind, we will not dither, and we will not get caught up by the net zero policy that has so far ensured that Canada has a total of 0 projects built by the world private sector, instead having to be built by the public sector. At the end of the day, this is really a call that with Parliament coming back, We have a very short time period in order to come up with projects that impress. And although I hear the Premier of Alberta saying, hey, there might be some good news coming, maybe the suppression of emissions caps, another dimension of the dreaded net zero policy that has enfeebled Canada. I think the proof's in the pudding. I'll believe it when I see it. Because at the end of the day, if you think you can take CO2, which is really the only fixation of this government, bury it in the ground and not have any concerns about it coming out of the ground at some point and having a devastating impact on others, as has happened before, the so-called sequestration, or what they refer to as CCUS, that is the carbon capture and underground storage. Those things rupture, we could have a problem. But more importantly, why is it even necessary? Spending billions of dollars to make a couple of people in Davos happy is no way of running an economy that's desperately in need of a strong project, a uniting project, a project that'll derive not only revenues and energy and growth, but also restore confidence in one's ability to invest in Canada and to work in Canada. That's where we stand at Canadians for Affordable Energy. Let's not talk about the office. Let's talk about the projects, and let's talk about timelines. Mr. Carney, time's up.